That's what we're going to do, guys. All right, so we're recording, everyone, and welcome to our June book club. And we are so fortunate this month to have our district director here with us to lead the conversation about this book, which is on team building and leadership. So let me just read you a little bit about this lady, and she is an interesting lady. Barbara Strasdas is currently the District 47 director. In this position, she oversees the 3,500 plus members of the district that include Southeast Florida and the Bahamas. She is responsible for directly administering and overseeing the day-to-day operations, finance, and human resources. Barbara graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in sociology and a minor in mathematics and statistics. And then she went on to further course study required to sit for the CPA exam. She's a 35-year licensed CPA, but her main career focus was industry, serving as controller, CFO, and administrator of law firms and private companies. She is a 21-year Toastmaster and has served in 7 district offices and 24 club officer positions. Barbara loves to read, and when she finds time, thoroughly dives into a good book. Historical fiction is her preference. When she finds an author who specializes in this genre, she tends to read many of that author's books. What she enjoys is learning new information, especially from the past, and usually she will prepare a speech once she has researched and learned more of that idea or error. The book we will discuss tonight is authored by John Gordon. He writes very to-the-point books filled with tidbits of wisdom on how to develop positive leaders and teams. He's written 23 books and has inspired many Fortune 500 companies and sports teams. Let's please welcome distinguished Toastmaster Barbara Strasdas.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mary Helen. That was very thorough. I appreciate that. Are there many of you who have ever heard of John Gordon before? Raise your hand. And I assume you've read some of his books, correct? I was introduced to John Gordon by actually my husband's daughter, Katie. She went to a conference, a real estate conference in Orlando a number of years ago, and she was given the No Complaining Rule book. And I read that very quickly. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, but it's discussed a little bit in this book. And he talks about that, you know what, if you want to complain, fix it. You can't complain unless you have a resolution. So we don't want you to complain, no whining, none of that. And I love that. It's short and sweet. If you have an issue, you better have a resolution when you bring it to the floor. From that, I have read many of his other books. Another one that I thoroughly love is The Energy Bus, which he also talks about in this book. I have given a speech on that numerous times, being the bus driver. And that book is basically a paradigm on if you have a vision, you must share your vision, and you must get your fellow bus riders to buy in on that vision, or you know what, kick them off the bus. Because if your team, he talked about teams, if your team doesn't share the vision with you and you don't communicate that vision, then there's no reason for them to be part of that team. This book, The Power of a Positive Team, I really liked because we work in teams all the time. Your family is a team, right? You have team members. You may work on a team at work or in your church, or obviously in Toastmasters. I always take these ideas and I really, really tie them into Toastmasters. Because to me, it's like, I think he was a Toastmaster and he gained a lot of information from us, right? Before he wrote these books. Although I'm going to send him a note because I noted on page 74 and 127 that he used the words constructive criticism. And those are a no-no in my field. I have always had the platform. It's about positive feedback. Don't use the word critique, criticism, none of that. I do not like that. And I found it twice in here and I went, what? No. So we are going to talk about this book. As Mary Helen said, he writes things that are pretty much to the point. They're pretty simple. They're not very long books. And I thought it was very important this year, with me being the leader of District 47, I've sent this to each of my division directors at the very beginning of the year because they were going to be leading teams of area directors like Aura. And Lorraine has been in that situation before as well. Leslie, you're leading a team. So I'm not sure if this was a book that you should have read at the beginning of the year instead of at the end. Are you just becoming a division director, or is this the end of your tenure?
You're muted, Leslie. Okay.
Yeah, I've just completed division director. That's correct.
Okay. So
Yeah,
we are
he's
going to
going
talk
to-
about some of his thoughts tonight. And one of the beginning things he talks about is developing a culture or having a culture. And I think you really can tie this into Toastmasters. We do have a culture. We have a culture about being positive. So does anybody want to share perhaps a place where you maybe have worked, or a team that you have worked with, or a different company that you've worked with where they had a culture? Or is there some place that you can think of out there in the world that has a specific culture and we know about that culture? Anybody want to share that? Sure.
I can start with something. I accepted a job with an Italian company that I had never heard of in the country of India that I had never visited, to set up a new pharmaceutical business. This was back in the late 80s. And so when you arrive in a place like that, this was long before the advent of the Bangalore as the India Silicon Valley and everything. So there were very few foreigners, in fact, in Bombay where I was. I met a few, but really I was surrounded by Indians almost 24 hours a day. And what happens is in a situation like this, there are a number of different kind of things that you have to contend with. You have to be able to build a rapport with really the same types of things that you have to do anywhere, in any organization, in any cultural situation, except that it's much more extreme in this kind of a situation. So to be able to understand people, to be able to relate to people, to be able to get people to buy into a vision, and to understand that people from other cultures, how they may have a perception of you that you may not even be aware of. And so you've got to get over all of these hurdles in order to establish trust. And the thing that I agree most with in this book is that, and I've learned over 40 plus years in the international sector, is that the key to everything, it's not money, it's trust. And after that, it's culture. And if you can establish trust with people, not only do people buy in, but actually, if you think about it, it lends itself to efficiency. And what I mean by that is, imagine you're in an organization where the individuals don't trust each other. What does it mean? You've got to second and third guess everything that you do in order not to make a faux pas, where you may expose yourself to risk. And so trust is so critically important to everything. And to me, one of the things that I did was I learned the language. And when you learn somebody else's language, it really helps. And I gave, after I came back, and I'll just finish with this, I did a seminar on doing business with India at Lucent Technologies, if you remember the Lucent Technologies in New Jersey. And one of the things they said, they were having tremendous problems in communication with their Indian partners. And one of the things I had them do was actually, one, learn a little bit about the sport of cricket, because that's India's main sport. And two, to learn a number of words in Hindi, because when you approach somebody in a foreign language, it touches them in a way that that you don't, even if they speak fluent English. It shows them that you're interested in their culture, and it gets rid of some of those preconceptions that they may have. So yes, I agree with him when he spoke about trust. This is the first thing that came to mind, was these experiences I had with India. I was in Taiwan after that, and it was similar. It was different, but the challenges were categorically similar.
Now, trust is very important. I know when we started our year, Shakira as my program quality director and Austin Canonica as club growth, we trusted in each other that we had our area that we were going to be involved in. And I did not micromanage them. We have a meeting tomorrow. We meet weekly and we talk about where we are, what we're doing. We remind each other what we're supposed to do. So trust, especially when you start out in a team, as Steve said, you've got to have trust in other people, that And I know he mentioned this about love and accountability. When you have a team, you have to, number one, get to know them really, really well so that everybody works together. I don't want to totally go into everything in the book because I want y'all to talk about that. Is there someone else that had a culture where they work that's different? Because I know we're all Toastmasters, so we know what our culture is in Toastmasters. But does anybody else, like Steve just shared, that want to share something? Lorraine does. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Good evening, everyone. It's so lovely to see everyone, and the weather's looking wonderful. But I worked for a company in Boca, a medical company, and I actually started maybe about 2 weeks after a new director had just come on board. And it was a office, and I say this from a good part of my heart. It was an office of all women, and they had a lot of gossipy stuff going on in the office. And so the new director, because the old director I think was a gentleman, and the new director, she implemented something that was really cool. That if you were going to talk about someone, whether good, bad, or indifference, about a work or a job or a task that somebody did that came into play with whatever you were doing, they had to be in the conversation too. So you could never have a conversation and go, oh yeah, Mary Ellen said ABC 1, 2, 3, because you got to go get Mary Ellen and get her into the conversation, or don't say another person's name unless it was just you. And I honestly have to tell you, it was probably one of the best organizations that I worked for when I got there. It was 9 women. We had rules that if you were selling something like anything for your kids, you had to buy something. Rule 1, didn't make a difference. You had to buy something because we all have kids, buy it. If you had a cough, a sneeze, or a cold, don't come to work because you're going to make us all sick and then make all our kids sick. And then we're going to be pissed off. We had a system of how to change the big 5-gallon water. We put it on the secretary's chair. 3 of us moved it along the room. 2 grabbed the bottom, 1 grabbed the top, and we were flipping it. And I went, ain't this something? But don't let the UPS man come in because we'd have him change the water. But it really, this woman really, she understood teamwork. And she took this ragtag team of 9 women and made an awesome team. It was, and I've worked for a lot of good people, a lot of idiots, but that was like one of the best places that I worked when it comes to a team-oriented goal of what we all had to do. And I just totally loved it. So yeah, one person makes a big difference at the top when they understand teamwork.
Fantastic. Wow.
May I share?
Absolutely.
Yes, I remember many years ago when I was at a job site where we had a lot of kids that were in the detention center. They had been arrested and they were in trouble. They were out of school. And I was in this site, and the kids they were all with destructive behavior, all kinds of conduct disorders and problems, and the parents had issues too. But we had the principal who ran this site, the school site, and he used to be called the love principal. And the reason for that was because we had a very divided unit, and he created his vision, his mission was love, no matter what. You got to love each other. This is your brother, this is your sister. Love is love is love. And I remember one day, everybody went home early. It was early released. Nobody told me anything, and I sat there in my office by myself until the end of the day. He showed up and said, Miss Bencosme, why are you still here? And I said, well, I'm waiting to leave by the time everybody should be leaving. He said, no, everybody went home. This man was fuming. He was furious. The next day, he met with everybody and he said, this has to change. I do not want you to leave Miss FRANCOIS sitting by herself and knowing that she belongs in a team. This is your team, this is your sister, and you left her by herself in this building. He was fuming. But after that, we set up a different, it was a different story. We started creating a system where there was a better communication. If somebody was leaving, everybody would know. Somebody was coming late, everybody would know. We worked as a team. And that's why they call him the love principle. And after that, once a month, we had this lunch. People would bring lunch and share with the team, and things changed after that. So I thought I would share with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anybody else want to share about a culture that they may have been involved in before we move on to another point?
I can share a little bit about this. So when I moved to Canada, I lived in the US for about 5 years. And I moved to Canada and I worked for a company called American Express. Amex is in the blue card. And they had a culture that was quite different because I've been a consultant at that time for probably about 15 years. I've been moving to different countries and different companies. But their culture was different. They had something called realize your potential. And that's where they encourage people to not just focus on what's in front of you, the project that you're working on, but to also, explore your hobbies and get interested in things outside. So, in the event that you lose your job or whatever, you're not devastated and you're not, you're not pegging yourself against that job. So I thought that was really fascinating. And even in the office, they were the first company that I worked for that started doing work from home. They realized that, for a number of consultants like myself who were commuting for like 2 hours, it was not really necessary. We had consultants out of Texas, different places around the world. And it really made a big difference for me personally, because I had, young kids at the time, and it allowed me to spend more time with my kids. And even within the office, the facilities that it offered cause you to work more and give more in terms of your actual project, because you had that extra time to relax and be more engaged outside of work. So when you get to work, you spend more time and you're more focused. I just want to mention that.
Now, Leslie, I think right now, so many people that are working from home, I think they're really enjoying it so much because they're having more interaction with their children, and the children are actually getting to see what they do, during and their stress, etc. So I think that's a good thing and a bad thing. Miriam, did you have anything that you wanted to share in regards to culture or a culture you worked in, or?
I'm currently working in a very interesting environment. I work in a manufacturing construction environment for a small business, and I work with people from Venezuela and Colombia. And I'm probably the only one that speaks English as a native language. But we all show up, and I think the love principle, because we all love what we're doing, and we actually love each other, and everybody is, we all share the same principles, which really comes down to family. So it's very easy to show up and work hard for everyone else.
Excellent. He talks about the top 10 team building ideas, and that's where you, like you're saying, and you have, who said it? Somebody moved around. Leslie talked about that you have to get to know people, or Aura did, I guess. You have to get to know people, because then you can really feel that love for them and you work harder, right? If you really get to know people better, you will work harder, just like having family members. Because I guess one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is, he gave us many instances in this book. Is there one that stood out in your mind that you really enjoyed him sharing with you in regards to events that happened or how they motivated? I see, who wants to, David, did you have something you wanted to say, or you haven't spoken yet? No? Okay. I think Lorraine or Mary Helen, did you want to share?
You know, I felt very sad reading this book for some reason. You know, this is a very positive book, and it gives you so many tools in terms of, you know, being a part of a good team and the result of good leadership, basically. And, you know, I felt really sad because I didn't feel that, you know, with my family, that I had those kinds of tools when I was raising my kids. You know, we all try to be good parents, but when I'm reading all these principles, I said I could have done so much more than I did with my kids.
Me too.
And one of the reasons is, and he pointed it out, is that I was always in survival mode, meaning that, you know, my parents, you know, we were a different generation and all that, but they just, you know, they were saying, okay, let's get these kids all raised. There were 5 of us, and it was hard, scrapping and working class. And, you know, my father, I'm not saying he couldn't wait till he could get us married off, but that was pretty much it. So, you know, I had to learn as I went along rather than having my parents be good role models. And I'm not blaming them because, you know, people are people, and you have to learn how to accept the people in your life the way they are. Otherwise, we can't go on. We will continue on with resentment and all that other things. When, you know, he's making a point in the book that to having a positive attitude is so critical for our success in life and for our relationships with everyone. And those are the things I've learned through the years. I've had to kind of teach myself all those things. I didn't learn them from my parents' knees. So, you know, sometimes we just do what we were taught to do. And I feel that I could have been a much better parent than I was.
But I'm sure because of that, you are an excellent grandparent, right?
Wonderful grandparent.
See? We get second chances.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Very
But
positive
it's
with the grandkids. Absolutely.
still.
I totally agree. Does anybody else want to share anything in that respect? One of the stories that he told, Lorraine?
I think the one that I thought was really very interesting is there were so many different metaphors to sports. I figured, you know, if you're not into sports, this book could really turn you off because there was, you know, so many sports. Yeah. But I think it was when they wrote down on the card what they wanted, and everyone, you know, put that, you know, they wanted to win the Super Bowl and this was it. And this was important to them, but they knew nothing of each other, their family, what makes them tick. And that's important. That's very important. So I thought that exercise that they did where I think it was maybe on whatever day it was, you know, someone else got on in front of there, and then they shared that person's family with the rest of the group. And that's very, very important because even though we're very open, you know, some people are very, very closed off. You know, I mean, you may, just like in my group, when I was president, we did a thing where we did an elevator pitch for a whole month. You got to win $25 at the end of the month. So for a whole month, everybody did an elevator pitch. And I had been in that club like 10 years already. And until some people did their elevator pitch and actually said what it is they actually do, I was shocked. I went, how do I not know this about you? I see you every Friday morning, 7 a.m. for the last double-digit years, and I don't know this about you. And that makes for a huge connection when you're dealing with someone. Because when I say to Mary Ellen, I'm your friend, then I need to know why, how, what makes you tick, what you like. If you're allergic to milk, I sure wouldn't bring you ice cream. But you only know that when you start to connect on a personal level. And I thought that was a very, very interesting project that he did with that team, getting to know you personally.
Well, he shared that by each person getting to know each other much better, then you're going to treat them as family. And it's just like, say, for instance, your child was running toward the street, of course, you're going to run after them and save them, right? So you're going to do your best to save your child from harm. Well, you would do possibly the same thing for a team member because they have become such a connection to your family.
Right.
And that's what motivates these teams. And he talks about that. He talks about, you know what, you don't have to be the most talented team, but if you have that feeling for each other, that you can go and win and do what you need to do. One of the stories that I thought was very interesting was the one about, what was his name? Sven Nader, who was playing for UCLA when Bill Walton was center or whatever position he had. The sports guys that know this better than I do. And they basically John Wooden told him that, you know what, you're never going to play, but you are here to make Bill Walton play better. Mm-hmm. And that this guy ended up getting drafted and playing in the NFL.
Right, that was it.
I was like, so many people would quit and say, what do you mean I'm never going to get to play? He never starred in a collegiate game, yet he was drafted because he worked with Bill Walton. Is that right? Is that Bill Walton, the really tall guy who was an excellent basketball player? I'm like, oh my gosh, that story just,
that was a good
story. Talk about serving others, not for you, but for them. And he talks about that. He talks about serving others. And as a team, well, and I've done this in my deck meetings. Ora can tell you this. I talk about, in the beginning of the year, I talked about building successful teams or developing successful teams. And it's team. Together, everyone achieves more. Mm-hmm. Because everybody is like the cog in the machine, right? Everybody has a role. And if we each do our little part, then the team is going to succeed. And one of the things he brought up also in this book, it's not about the numbers. And we knew, Shakira, Austin, and I knew from the beginning this year, it was not going to be about the numbers. Because last year they were distinguished, COVID hit, and so many clubs fell off because of corporate. And our region advisor said, it's about your goals. It's not about the numbers. And that is what we have done all year round. Our success plan was talking about making certain that our club members were recognized, making sure the clubs were recognized, because when you reach out to them, guess what? They're going to share this gift. And the vision, my vision about the community outreach, Ora was involved in that. Oh my gosh, all of you, they embraced it. I have never been so thankful that someone tapped me on the shoulder. I don't know who it was, but to have that vision, because I really think it helped the district this year, bringing unity. So does anybody want to share something personal where you've worked on a team other than maybe what you shared already, that maybe there was a bad person on there that added issues to your team, or how you overcame that? Just share something about working on a team if you want to.
I worked at my last job as an employee quite a few years ago was at General Electric. And I thought of General Electric, they acquired the European company that I was working for. And I always had a perception of General Electric being sort of like, mom apple pie and the flag. And then when you get into this organization, you find that it is so cutthroat and that you spend more of your time. I was the regional head for Latin America for a business, and that you end up spending more of your time on internal matters, sort of politicking of necessity, than you do on the market. So when we had a workout session with all the different Latin American leaders, people would say, how much time do you spend on the market versus on internal affairs, internal issues? And for me, it was like, 90% of the market and 10% sort of politicking, if you will. And some of the people at GE, these people, it was like the reverse or the inverse. We spend 90% of our time on internal issues and 10% of our time on the market. And so it was really a rude awakening to see sort of like the lengths that some of these executives would go to protecting their turf, including, initiating legal investigations from, with outside lawyers on people they considered internal competitors, and they would use what was a very, very exacting and demanding compliance system. It was so demanding that they would turn the compliance system against their competitors. They would find a way. And so, as an example, when I began, there were, I think, 8 different business leaders in Latin America. All of them had been dislodged by one individual in Brazil, except for myself. And then they had been reduced to a total of 4. And the 2 who were in the other positions, these were all Brazilians, were all replacements for those who had been in those roles when I had begun. So it was just a very rude awakening, and just suffice it to say that my perception of GE when I left the company 12 years ago was very, very different from that which I had as, we bring good things to light. Well, unfortunately, sometimes, we bring good things to dark is more applicable.
I can understand. I was at a position at a law firm, and I came in there, and the controller, his wife had cancer, and he was not doing a very good job, and they had an HR person, and she really didn't know what she was doing. And I came in and kind of cleaned up the mess, took both of those positions and did what needed to be done. But there was one person in there, one secretary, who was secretary to the head honcho, and she made my life so miserable because she didn't like me succeeding. She tattled on me for stupid things, and I left after 20 months. I said, you know what? I don't need this aggravation each and every day. And it was funny because, they had their Christmas meeting, and they said, here's your bonus, and we're giving you this huge raise because we're so happy with you. And I gave my notice 2 months later.
Thanks for the money.
And that was after a lot of resilience and perseverance.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If a position or a team doesn't make you happy, you either need to help change that, right? Or leave. Get off the bus, as they say. Right. But does anybody have a position where they're getting ready to be part of a team or an experience on a team recently that, where your positivity changed the team? I just love to hear stories on your actual experiences that you may have had, because we could talk about the book all day. We know I think in Toastmasters, we know so much of the same stuff because we hear it way more. I know that when I go to webinars for the FICPA, I am already really aware of so much because we hear so much about leadership and so much about team building in Toastmasters, and being a member for so long. We get this wonderful input of information. So does anybody want to, if you go back to my question, maybe share regarding a team or something you did that you thought was beneficial?
With my team, I'm new to a new site that I have right now for at-risk children. And this team, it takes a little bit time for that team that is already there to adjust to a new person coming in. But I try all the strategies to be inclusive, to be included in their team. We have different working hours. They're there at 7 in the morning. I'm there a little bit later, but we get to see each other. We get to work together. And my intention is that I want for them to include me in every child that they work with. I want to be part of that relationship so that I can give feedback and work with the youngster. And I make, like I said, I make every effort to be a part of the team. And this is what a text that one of the teachers sent me yesterday, because I was in a training for team building yesterday from 8:30 until 3:30. And they were celebrating something at the school, right? So because I knew I wasn't going to be there, she was so pleased. And she said to me, thank you so much for the wonderful pre-birthday surprise and thoughtful. And she's sending these hands, praise hands. You guys are the best co-workers anyone could ever ask for. And she blew kisses. I feel so special and loved. Sorry you were not able to be there today, but I will save you some cake for you on Tuesday. So that was so sweet, because I didn't feel included in their team, but I have made an effort to be part of them, their group. And I was
Fantastic.
so happy when I received that text yesterday. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting, Mary Helen, when you were talking about raising your children, I found out something that my son-in-law does, and I never, I thought it was really interesting. Every day when they sit down to dinner, they have 3 boys, they ask them, give me one highlight of your day and give me one not so highlight of your day. And even the little one who's now 7, and it's just so, when I hear this, I was like, oh my gosh, such a great thing to do, because, we didn't do that. My dad died when I was 4. So I only had a mother. My mother never remarried. She had 3 kids raised all on her own. And I think we turned out okay. But, there was none of that. We said our blessing at the beginning of the meal. We ate our dinner. But just, that is such a great thing to do.
Yeah, it is. For sure. I noticed that you're right, Lorraine. There were a lot of examples of sports teams that they use as an example. And I guess that's the most objective type of team that people can relate to, because many people are sports aficionados. They watch football, baseball, basketball, whatever. And did anyone see, was it The Last Dance? It was the documentary about the Chicago Bulls. And one of the points that it made was, who was it? Michael Jordan, right, is the superstar on that team. That he was part of that team for a while, but it wasn't until they got in other team members that they could actually work together, or that they worked it as a team. And I guess they brought in that Phil Jackson as a coach too. Phil Jackson was kind of like a little bit weird, and he could relate to everybody on that team in some form or another. So that's how they were able to bring that team together. And so it's fascinating to me. I'm not much of a sports fan in particular, but I am a real fan about the sports psychology and what people can do to bring out the best in people. And we're talking elite athletes. These guys are paid a lot of money, and many of them come from backgrounds that are less than advantaged. And, they have to work through that whole maturity thing as well, when they're integrating into the sports. I mean, I like to listen to podcasts. I don't know if any of you do, but does anyone listen to Tim Ferriss at all? Podcasts?
I do.
Okay, yeah. His latest one had Chris Bosh on it, and Chris Bosh was a member of the Miami Heat, but he's just written a book about what I would tell my younger self, or younger athletes out there, which, is going to be a great book, incidentally. So yeah, that I thought that The Last Dance, and I hate to go on about this, was very interesting.
I'll have to look at that one.
It was a good documentary.
It was a good documentary.
It's on Netflix, I think.
Yeah, it is on Netflix now. The other thing I'm always interested in, because I just read an autobiography of Andre Agassi. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
And then, and then I've been watching this Spanish telenovela too about Luis Miguel. And the background of many of these elite athletes, like Tiger Woods, for instance, is they had parents that drove them. Totally drove them. Luis Miguel, the singer, one of the most famous singers in South America, who I'd never heard of before this telenovela. Now I'm hooked on him for sure. He had a father that was just like out after him from the time he was a kid, out singing and learning. So sometimes it takes that driving parent to create a situation, but not always. I mean, I'm just curious, any of you know of any other examples where they did not have that push from the parents?
I think also what it is as a parent, sometime because you were looking at teams, is you see that spark or that potential in your child that no one else may not see. Look at the Williams sisters. I mean, totally. You're living in Compton. What in the hell do you know about tennis, girls? And your father looks at you and he goes, I am going to make champions out of you girls. And it was very funny because Tiger Woods and both the Williams sisters said something that was so similar. And we see both fathers who are pushers. You know, Tiger Woods' dad, he would be out there all the time. And we see the Williams dad, he is out there, like out there. And but both tennis players and golfers said that the people that you saw up front, they weren't the driver. It was their mothers. Tiger Woods' mother would just tell him, she goes, I need you to win today. That's it.
Pressure.
That's it. That's it. Venus and Serena said their mother used to say things like, I just need you to annihilate that person at the end of the court. That's it. And so I know, but for the average kid, you know, you would have cracked and just, you know, you'd be looking for a Coke and a smile and an exit strategy. But there are these athletes, these performers that they have something that, you know, that the rest of us don't have. Or maybe it's just, maybe it's there, but listen, you're like, do I really want to? I read Condoleezza Rice's book, and she started out being a figure skater. And I know, who would have thought? And her parents saw that she was very good, a piano player.
Yeah.
And this is back in the 60s. They mortgaged their house to buy her a Steinway. I know, right? Right.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
right. And for her, it was all she could think of. Okay, if I want to be if I want to be a concert pianist, oh, it's really simple. Instead of waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I just have to wake up at 4. That's not your average kid. They barely want to wake up at noon. So it's when you're a parent, you see that in your kid, and either you're not the right parent for that kid and it dies, or you just.
What's interesting, Lorraine, because what you're kind of bringing up, if you have anyone ever read Malcolm Gladwell's The Outliers?
That's the book. We're doing that book in July. I'm going to be there. That's the book that I selected.
I love that book.
I love it.
So we will expect you at that book club meeting, Barbara.
I won't say any more, because I love that book. I use that all the time.
I hope you'll be there.
It has to do with practice, practice, practice.
Thank you.
10,000 hour rule also.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yes,
how
exactly.
you
I was thinking of that when in his book, he talks about the 1% rule, where you do 1% more each day. And I made a note right down here. Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers book.
Yes, it's called Grit.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Grit.
One thing I wanted to talk about back on the team idea. Has anybody seen the movie Invictus?
I think I've seen, yeah.
Years
It's
ago.
Morgan Freeman.
Football team.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I saw it, yeah.
Or George and I saw that movie not too long ago. And when I see something that interests me, as Mary Ellen said in my bio, I have to do research, and then I usually give a speech on it, because I just so love learning something new. And it was about Nelson Mandela, right when he had taken office after being in jail, and apartheid was getting over. And he knew that he had to unify the country. And he knew that people love sports. And the rugby team there that never even used the national anthem. They didn't even know the national anthem. But he got together with the head captain, who I think was played by Matt Damon in the film. And he just kind of motivated him and suggested things to him on how to get the team united. He also took the time to learn every single player's name, and he would go out to their practices and he would call them by name. And he went, where's that guy? Where's so-and-so? But that is how you really,
Dedication.
that's what shows that you have an interest in this team. And that team was motivated to win that, I guess it was national champion. Is that what they call it over there? I don't know. I don't know that much about rugby. Although I should, because George's granddaughter may be going to the Olympics in rugby, because she played rugby at BYU and graduated recently. And the Olympic teams are looking at her for a future. Like, what?
Wow.
Nice.
Girls rugby is rough. Oh my gosh.
Not for powder puffs.
So it's interesting how taking that little bit of motivation, and I know you've probably all done that in your clubs. you know, you reach out to somebody, you see potential, just like in your grandchildren, right? Or maybe like Lorraine mentioned, in your child, and you go to them. And I remember specifically one girl, she was the vice president of education. And I said, Patty, why didn't you think about being president? She goes, I couldn't be president. You know, she did not see that in her skill box or whatever. She did not see it. And she turned out to be an excellent president. So, you know, it's that everybody out there has that potential to motivate somebody to do something
Absolutely.
beyond their
Yeah.
capacity or to try. You know, I try to motivate my grandchildren. I have one that loves to draw, and he and I sit down and we draw all the time. Finbar, let's draw. Let's have some fun drawing. You know, you got to, Mary Ellen, if we didn't do it with our kids, I try to do it with my grandkids. I really do. I try to say, you know what? You know, they don't think that this one can go out for sports because he's not that big. I go, sure you can. Try. You never know.
You never know.
So let me ask you a question, Barbara. You're almost complete your year as our district director. Is it been a different experience than it has been up to this point in time in Toastmasters as a
Very
head of-
interesting because, you know, I didn't go through the trio. I was I've been a Toastmaster for 21 years. I've done division director. I've done area director twice. I've done all kinds of roles. And being the finance manager, you know, I had intimate knowledge. I've also been the audit chair before. I audited the books. So I had an intimate knowledge of being involved, very involved with Toastmasters. So just like when you go to, you know, interview for a job like a CFO, that's basically what the district director does. You're the COO, you oversee the financial part, you oversee the people, which I've done that, and the operations, I've done all that. So I didn't feel that I really needed to go up those steps, and that's why I interviewed. They did not nominate me, but I ran from the floor and I did win because people know who I am. They know what I have done over 21 years in Toastmasters, my passion for this organization. And I was blessed. It was a close race, but it's been an interesting year because, oh my goodness, we never thought this was going to be COVID.
Thank you.
You know, last February, you know, we did a budget. We did a budget of meeting in person. We did a budget of traveling, the Bahamians coming to the United States. We did a budget that encompassed all that. We didn't do a huge budget on shipping, and we have had to ship so much stuff. But it's interesting because in February, we did do a hybrid deck meeting, and only 7 people came. That night we did the Hall of Fame, which was also a hybrid. And it was the first time in a solid year that I actually got to see some of my leadership team physically. It had been February 14th of the year previous when we had our last deck meeting in person up at Kaiser when I was finance manager. It was very emotional for me.
Yeah.
It was the first time I had actually seen Shakira for a year, Austin for a year, Leonardo from the Bahamas, Andre. Oh my gosh. It was very, very emotional for me that physically to see people. And I know we have been able this year because of the COVID and the Zoom, we have been able to connect. Oh my goodness. We have never, as a district director or the PQD or the CGD has never been able to travel to the Bahamas to be at area contest, to be at division contest.
Mhm.
This is something totally unusual. And you know, Richard Peck, the international president, said this has changed this organization.
Mhm. It has.
It really, like Leslie being here from Toronto. I mean, oh my gosh, we had all those beautiful accredited speakers at our conference.
Yeah.
Lorraine still has her conference thing up
I
behind her.
know.
Yeah.
So did you all attend the conference? I hope you attended some of
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I did.
That was a teamwork. We sat
Mm.
there, and when we started planning that, it was Maurice Fuller, myself, Shakira, the 2 co-chairs, Austin. We sat there and started throwing ideas out there. What did we want? And you know, we talked about going in person. There were people that are other districts that were doing in-person conferences. But as a leader, you have to make some decisions that may not be that popular with some people. I love in-person conferences. I get excited. I love to go. I skipped my high school reunion to go to a Toastmasters conference, a big
Really?
high school reunion. I chose to go to the conference instead, in person. So it was difficult for me. And I said, you know what? This is a year that we make everything available for our members, that we make it international so that Leslie can come, so that all these accredited speakers could come, so that we can invite people in to truly be part of the conference, because we hope we excited them. We hope in the years coming up that people will want to come to the conference, that will want to physically come to the conference. If you go back, my first conference, I think I joined in 1999. My first conference I went to, I think was 2004, maybe. I didn't even know there was anything outside the club. I had no idea. We went to a conference, and that's when District 47 was the whole state of Florida except the Panhandle and the Bahamas. Okay, it was the Panhandle wasn't in it, but Florida and the Bahamas was all District 47. We were in a room and they were doing the DTM walk. I sat there and I went, there were 500 people dancing and excited, and these people walking to get their medallion. And I'm like, the light went off, the light bulb went off. I went, oh my gosh. I had no idea. I realized what this organization was about right then and there. It was something that, an organization that is mentoring, positive, and makes people be better so that we can go out and mentor other people. And that's why my husband and I are still Toastmasters 21 years later, 21 and a half years, because we see how people grow in this organization. And yes, this year was a little tough, being everything through Zoom, but I really think that this was a unifying factor this year. I really think we were so able to attend district council meetings in the Bahamas. They were able to come visit us, that it really has unified, because we are one district. I know some people think it's Florida and the Bahamas, or the Bahamas and Florida, but we're one district. We're one people working for the same purpose, District 47. We have our mission statement, and that is what we're working on. And I think it really came to unify the district so much more. And there was one other thought that I wanted to say, and my mind just went, shh. Oh, and the other thing was, we were not going to charge a penny. I had some co-chairs of that conference that wanted to charge money. No. I wanted to make sure that anybody could come to this conference, whether they were Toastmasters or not Toastmasters, because this is how we grow our brand. This is how we let people know what Toastmasters is about. There were family members that came to the conference, and I did remember my other point. There was a district director in District 74. She was a 30-year Toastmaster, and she passed away about a month ago. And they let us know about it. I was able to go to South Africa via Zoom and attend her memorial service. It was so touching. There were people from all over this world attending that memorial service for that lady. She was a 30-year Toastmaster. They talked about how she mentored people, how the passion that she had for Toastmasters. It was truly a wonderful
experience
event to go to. And I mean, I didn't even know, I never knew her. I did not know her. I mean, I sat there and I cried. It's like, just to hear her colleagues talk about her was something else. And that's a silver lining in this COVID thing, that we've gotten to connect with Toastmasters around the world. It truly tells us that we are one organization. And if you've never gone to an international convention, has any of you ever gone to a convention?
No, I haven't.
Leslie, did you go? Where did you go? The one in Toronto?
No,
Vancouver?
I went to the one in Chicago. I jumped in my car and I drove to Chicago. It was the best experience of my life. I was surprised to see so many people, because at the time we never had the power of Zoom, but because I was president of this French club, and I was still learning French myself, I connected with this club in on the west coast of Africa. And I was amazed that, I just for the cost of gasoline, I got to the conference. But these guys came all the way from Africa, and they was like so excited. They had their, when they had the costume night, they were all dressed up. It was just amazing that when you look at the flags and so many people from all corners of the world, it's a once in a lifetime experience. It's amazing.
Well, we were very sad that, I was supposed to go to Paris.
I
My
planned
one-
Paris.
too.
I bought a dress.
My one
Whoa.
perk to go to Paris, and then it was going to be Nashville. Well, those two got canceled. So my perks are gone after this year. They're not doing Paris until 2022, but I'm going
Oh
because
my.
you
See you
see
there.
over 2,000 plus people there. It was something else. It was, but the global thing has really helped that. But what Leslie's saying about the international convention is something else. It really is. I know Richard Peck said that there were over 10,000, more than 10,000 people that attended, probably more than that. I
Wow.
can't even remember what the number was. The virtual conference, and they're doing that again this year, which is sad because I really want to go in person. I really do. But I'll be going to Paris. Are you going to Paris, Leslie?
Oh, definitely. My kids are all excited about going.
Lorraine's going.
Yes, I am. I had planned, I was like, I got my DTM that year. I'm like, I'm going. Yeah, no, we were all locked up in a house, nothing to do. Feeling like the Grinch who stole Christmas.
Well, it's funny too, because when I was interviewed at the DLC, the District Leadership Committee, when they didn't choose Shakira and I because we were running from the floor, but we did win. They asked me, they said, well, what about the travel? If you had started at Club Growth, you would have had 3 years of travel.
Yeah.
I said, it's not about the travel.
No.
Was that a little prophetic?
Yeah, I know, right?
Because there has been no mid-year training. There has been no international conventions. You know what? It's about change and adaptability. And that's what this, and I don't know if you remember when I campaigned, change that brings opportunity. Because change is important. This is how we adapt. And I'm not a young fried chicken. I'm an old chicken. But you've got to adapt. You've got to adapt to change. And I think being a leader of a team, you definitely, oops, what happened here? My paper hit my thing there.
Nice picture though, Barbara.
Oh, thank you. You have to adapt. And I think we find that as a team, right? If things aren't working, you got to listen. And he talks about that. He talks about listening. Listening is important. That's what some of these team leaders has taught him. Listening is important so that we can hear where the issues are and adapt to that. Does anyone want to, and I know we're over time, do you usually just an hour? Is that what you do? I don't know, Mary Ellen.
We go till 8:30.
Oh, okay. Oh, we got time.
Yeah.
So tell me, if you would, what did you like about this book or what you didn't like about this book? David, did you want to talk to us? We haven't heard from you this evening.
Oh, I didn't read the book, so I just wanted to listen.
So what did you pick up from what we said?
What I picked up is you all had interesting experiences that you related to the book about connection, which is very important. And I find that connection is a difficult issue because there are some people who do want to connect and others are like, eh. And that is the challenge, because the people who don't want to connect typically are your atypical employees.
Your what? Your what?
Your atypical employees.
But maybe you can draw them in. You know,
Oh, that's what we try to do.
But interesting in the book, do you remember the part in the book where the school teachers did not want to be part of the positivity and they left?
Oh, they had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
They brought this positivity into a school, David, and there were some teachers that said, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of being positive. I'm going.
Yeah.
But people do that, you know, people sometimes they do that without even saying that the change is more than they're willing to stretch themselves. and they do weed themselves out eventually. I remember many moons ago, I was chairing a committee for a city I lived in, and I was really very self-conscious about it because it was my first time. You know, it's like Toastmasters. The first time you're a Toastmaster, you sit there for weeks and months and years, and you see how it's done, and then it's your time, and it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I know what I'm not going. I know the mistakes I'm not going to make, and I had a great outline. My biggest thing is making sure that the meeting started on time and ended on time. I didn't want to fit into that category of, oh, you're late with your meeting. And I remember I got a call from the mayor's office at that time, which you never want to call from that when you're just a low committee person, that one of my people was asking too many questions, annoying people, and just being a total pain. And if you didn't know how to control your people, Miss Campbell, maybe you should find a co-chair. Like real political people. They're just so. I was gracious. I was nice. And I said, okay, problem handled. You don't have to worry about that. And I remember my grandmother always saying, idle time makes work for the devil. You know, you got to keep kids busy. You keep kids busy, they don't make any trouble. This person who was he really wasn't making trouble. He was just retired with nothing to do. I gave him so much work to do. Can you find out about this? I need that phone number. If you can contact this, set the group up for that, get this done, get that done. I worked him like a runaway slave. By the time we finished with that committee, he came and he goes, you know, I just want to say this is like one of the best committees that I have ever been on. And in the back of my head, I was like, buddy, I was so going to ask you from this committee. You have no idea because you're making the whole team look bad. But it is literally knowing how to maneuver and structure people and get the best out of your people. And sometimes, you know, that's really, really hard. Like in the book, when you don't know your team members. I mean, the only thing I really knew about this guy was that he was retired with way too much time on his hand. So I just kept him busy. But I think that is such a key to this, the whole team and group medley, is knowing your people, being able to maneuver them and pull the best out of your people. Because, you know, we all have it within us to do. We just sometimes just knowing how to do it, when to do it, or sometimes when not to do it is the most important thing. And having that and being able to get that out of people, I think is very, very important, that connection. Yeah, so yeah, I've seen some things.
Steve, was there something in the book specifically that stuck out for you?
Me, Barbara, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I looked at this book it seemed like sort of a compendium of maxims on positivism. And it seemed like you were almost like being lectured, because this is somebody that has devoted so much of his life to this field of being positive, developing people and leaders. And I kind of came to the conclusion that, notwithstanding the fact that these are things we're all aware of, what happens oftentimes is that we have reservoirs of information of things that we're aware of, but nothing to remind us to sort of abide by them or to implement them. And so some of the things that he said that stuck with me, the thing that stuck with me the most is what you were harping on before about being part of a team and how a team has to gel. And then finally, when he said, look, you have to sacrifice yourself for the sake of the team. And that is, at some levels, people can accept that, okay? But for example, when he's dealing with guys like Sean McVay and with the Philadelphia Eagles and with NHL teams, the thing is that you're dealing with individuals that, just to make it anywhere near that level of professionalism in sports, you have to be so much over the course of your entire life the focus of everything you're doing in order to develop the skills and the abilities, and the concept of thinking about somebody, putting somebody else before yourself, unlike really, I think, in the example with the Navy SEALs. I think that comes more naturally to those kinds of guys, but to get professionals to make that kind of a commitment, to me, it's like a really sort of a difficult proposition.
Mhm.
These are
I
people.
love that. There's a couple things that he mentioned in there that I loved about those people who played basketball but never made the shots. That you
Oh,
had
yeah.
to be part of the team leading up
Mhm.
to, but you
Mhm.
never shot
Score.
the basket.
Score, but don't shoot. Score, help somebody score, but you can't make a shot. I think that's how,
Mhm.
yeah. I
Mhm.
thought that was very interesting. Yeah. Make the team look good.
And also today, I'll just throw in here, I'm wearing it. I don't know if you can see my shirt, and I have a lot of these shirts that says US Soccer, but today was a very, very big day for US Soccer. And I think the Canadians experienced this last year with Alphonso Davies, but for the first time, an American played in the European Champions Cup final today. Kristen Pulisic from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And you have no, I played this game. I used to play it was my passion in life originally was playing soccer. And, 40 years ago, the US was nowhere and Canada was nowhere. And both of our teams have come to levels where we're becoming respected soccer teams around the world. And this today was just another example of it. And his team won, by the way. So it was really a great achievement for you and for teamwork today.
Well, it's interesting too. My son, I brought my son-in-law up again. He doesn't know I'm bragging on him. He has coached soccer numerous times, but when he's coaching soccer, it's just not playing positions. He's teaching them respect, consideration. He's teaching them core values. And he goes through that as part of the regiment before they actually get out there and play, which
Right.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty cool. Because, do we really think of these things? Yeah, I went to Catholic school all my life. And, we knew, okay, we have little things that we learn, but some kids are not given those moral values or those core values or any of that stuff. So I know, Steve, you said a lot of this stuff we're already aware of, but just think of the people that maybe younger people that have no idea, they just don't put two and two together. So it's a book that really solidifies, okay, how do I put a team together? That, the 10 top team building ideas that he gave. Who would think about putting somebody in the safe spot and saying, hey, you've got to share something very vulnerable with us, because maybe they couldn't themselves share that. So it's, how do you get people to share something very vulnerable?
Yeah. And when I say be aware, I'm talking about people who, for example, who are speaking here today, who have been involved with organizations, with companies, with people. No, for young people, these are almost alien concepts that they have to embrace and they have to sort of integrate into their thinking.
The one thing that I really got from this book is the idea that no matter who we are connected in life, we can make that a team. Even if it's only one other person, or even our husband and wife, or whatever it is, we can make that a team. So I thought that was, at least I got something good. The other thing was that word of the year. I love that concept. I really did. So there was a lot of good things that I pulled from that book.
No, it's just like writing your goals. We talk about writing your goals. You put them in your wallet at the beginning of the year. By putting that word out there, it kind of keeps you accountable, doesn't it? If you choose 1 year, and I think he talked about in the family, they choose one word a year, and they always have that word in view so that you remember that. It's like a gratitude day. Maybe that's your word for the year. It's being grateful about what you have, as opposed to, I get to take the kids to school. No, I'm sorry, I have to take the kids to school, instead of I get to take the kids to school. And I'm blessed because at least 3 days a week, I get to get up at 5:45 in the morning and drive over to my daughter's house to make sure her husband can go to work, because she's already left. so that I can get 2 of the kids to school. And it's not a,
Oh,
I
wow.
have to do
Get to
this.
do it.
I get to. I get to wake them up and make sure they're ready and get off to school. So to me, and they're talking about putting the youngest one in a school that he's going to be waking up when they do it. I go, what? What do you mean? I won't get to do this anymore.
Oh,
You're taking something away
they're
from
robbing
grandma.
you.
How could you do that?
they're
Yeah.
robbing you.
They say, well, it's that choice or being there and picking them up at 2:30 in the afternoon every day.
I'll take the morning.
Miriam, did you go ahead, Mary Helen?
No. Go ahead, Miriam.
No, I-
Yes, I found it very interesting how Lorraine actually described what John Gordon refers to as energy vampires, and how she turned around this gentleman who was plainly being an energy vampire and made him part of the team by putting him to work and redirecting his energies, so to speak.
I never thought about him being an energy vampire. That is his new title in my head.
Yes, because I'm a fan of John Gordon. I actually changed careers about a year or so ago, just before the pandemic hit. I had left the place where I'd been employed almost 15 years. And it actually started with my list. I use Audible during my commute because I have a awful commute, especially in Miami. And the power of positive leadership started my adventure. And then I transitioned to the energy bus. In fact, I had everybody in my office read the energy bus. So we are very big about energy vampires and not letting people drain our energy.
Right.
So one of the biggest things is we actually had more of a managerial leader. So we sort of formed our own kind of, team together, and then made sure that we were always positive and we were always working together and giving everybody and telling each other how much we appreciated each other and working together as a team. And I was sad to leave, but it also made me feel good that I could leave. So to actually listen to the power of a positive team brought back all this, the memories and everything. It was really
I hope it
excellent.
didn't make you sad.
I know.
It also made me sad
Yeah.
too.
That's 2 people that have been sad about this book.
We're all different, but we need to start wrapping this up, Barbara, because we have a couple people that are going to share their hosting experiences in the next couple months. So if you'd like to conclude or wrap anything up with your moderation, we'd love it. You've done a great job with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary Helen. I love reading these kind of books. I'm a historical fiction fan as well, but when you read something that's quick, simple, and to the point, it really gets your mind thinking, and you think about those times. I could have done this better in the future. Let me try something different. Always, and you know what? You talked about definitely in everyday life. My husband and I are married for 25 years, and yeah, I could be more positive at times, just like he could be. You get used to each other and you kind of are grunchy and crunchy or whatever. So you got to think about, would you talk to somebody else that same way? So it makes you really remind yourself you need to be positive no matter what team it is, whether it's just 2 people. Dance together, laugh together. That's something that I've always talked about. We were dancing in the kitchen earlier while the kids were listening to Mamma Mia. George and I were dancing in the kitchen while I was making dinner.
Wow.
But I
Great
hope you all
example.
enjoyed this book, and I hope that you come back for July, because that's a good book that Steve's going to talk to you about. If you have any questions or want to reach out to me, my email is bstrasdas@toastmastersd47.org, or my Gmail is barbarastrasdas@gmail.com. I'd be glad to touch base with any of you. It's always great to see people that I've seen over the years, but I don't get to connect with all the time. Thank you so much.
And thank you for being our
Thank you,
host
Barbara.
this month. Yes. And our host for June will be Elena Leichhardt. She just signed on the screen. She has guests, but she agreed to come on so she could tell us a little bit about her book. I'm going to share my screen with you right now. Oops, wait a minute. Here we go. Can you all see that?
Not yet, not yet.
I can
Not
see
yet?
your beautiful face, but not the
Oh.
screen.
All right, here we go.
There we go.
There we
Yes.
go.
Verbal judo.
Yes. Okay. So this is Elena's book, The Art of Verbal, Gentle Art of Persuasion. So Elena, go for it. Tell us a little bit about this book and why you chose it.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me barge in so late. I wish I was part of this conversation, but I have Memorial Day starting a bit early with a lot of company, margaritas and everything that follows margaritas. But I would like to introduce the book, Verbal Judo. I read it the first time about 10 years ago. No, even more than that. And when I was reading it, I was thinking, no, that's not going to work. The book is about addressing conflicts, handling conflicts, conflicts at work, conflicts in relationships with the significant other, with kids, with people on the street, with strangers, any kind of conflicts. And I don't know about you, but my response to conflict was always fight or flight, which is not the best solution for a conflict. It solves the problem for the moment, but not for the long term. And sometimes people say that conflict is a healthy part of a relationship. It helps to build a relationship. I never viewed it that way before I read the book. And once again, when I was reading the book, I was thinking, no, this is not going to work. No, this is not going to work. No, that's just fiction. But while I was reading the book, I had an incident at work. I was at work, sitting, minding my own business, when an executive assistant barged into my cubicle and she started just saying nasty things about me out of nowhere, accusing me of things. And ordinarily, I would be just all flustered or angry and would respond from that place. But because I was reading the book, I just said like one word from that book, and it changed the entire conflict so much that 10 minutes later, she was inviting me to walk to her cubicle so that she could share with me the jam that she brought from home and that she would like my opinion on. So I would highly recommend this book. It's theory, practice, and practice in the sense that the author shows how to apply it and gives a real life example after each concept. So I really appreciated that. And I hope you will enjoy the book because conflicts are unavoidable in life. And I think we always have a choice to let the conflict destroy the relationship or take it to another level. And I think that's what the book is about. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Helen.
Okay, thank you, Elena. And we do look forward to the book. I already have my copy.
Awesome.
Okay, that's our June selection. And as always, we meet on the last Saturday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or whatever 7 is at the point in time. Now, in our July book selection, Stephen Harwood would be our moderator, and he has chosen The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, which you also mentioned, Barbara. I don't have the copy of the presentation with me, Stephen, but would you like to describe a little bit about the book and why you chose it?
Yeah, I read this book many years ago. I chose it because I was really, first of all, I've read other books by Malcolm Gladwell, and he's an excellent author. But I was struck by the way circumstances can dictate outcomes that we would never think about. And I was really curious as to how Malcolm Gladwell even had begun to research a lot of the subjects that he presented in the book, and how they just created outcomes that you would never expect. I mean, different industries, different fields, but it was just amazing. Without going into specific examples, it was just amazing how these outcomes were produced by circumstances that were completely unanticipated or unexpected.
And we're looking forward to that book in July as well. So I want to thank you all for attending our book club on this Memorial Day weekend. And does anyone have anything else that they need to share with the group?
Thank you.
No, it was a great
Awesome.
discussion.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Barbara.
All right. And
Awesome
thank
book.
you.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
All
See you
right. Thank
next
you.
month.
Good
Enjoy.
night.
Enjoy
Have a
your
good
weekend.
Memorial
Bye
Day.
now.
Take care.
Thank you for
Okay, see you
coming.
later. Barbara, thank you.
You're welcome.